The text message on my husband's phone glowed in the darkness like a beacon of destruction. 3 a.m, and I wasn't snooping. The buzz had woken me, his screen lighting up the nightstand between us like a warning flare. Can't wait for the weekend, the cabin, the wine, and that pink lace set. My heart stopped, actually stopped, or felt like it did, and in that frozen moment, I read the sender's name. Diane Parker, my best friend from Riverside Botanical Garden, where we'd worked together for 7 years, arranging wedding bouquets and funeral wreaths side by side. Diane, who'd held my hand through my mother's passing 2 years ago. Diane, who came over every Thursday for wine and gossip. Diane, who apparently knew exactly which cabin this message referred to. My lake house, the property I'd inherited from my grandmother, and never put in both our names. I lay there beside my sleeping husband, Grant, while my entire world tilted off its axis. The phone screen dimmed, then went dark, but the words burned in my retinas. Pink lace. The cabin. My cabin. My hand shook as I picked up my own phone and photographed his screen, turning up the brightness to capture every word. It took 3 tries to get a clear shot because my fingers wouldn't stop trembling. Then I set his phone back exactly where it had been and stared at the ceiling, listening to Grant snore softly beside me, the man I'd been married to for 13 years, and I felt something inside me turn to ice. When his alarm went off at 6, I pretended to sleep. Through barely cracked eyelids, I watched him shower, dress in his slate grey suit, kiss my forehead with lips that had probably kissed her. He smelled like sandalwood soap and lies. "Big client meeting today," he said to my supposedly sleeping form. "Might be late getting home." How many times had I heard that lie? How many client meetings and late nights at the office had actually been her? I waited until his Mercedes pulled out of the driveway before I moved. Then I sat up, grabbed my phone, and pulled up the photo of that text message, reading it again and again until the words lost meaning and became just shapes, just proof of betrayal so complete it hollowed me out. The house felt different in the morning light. Our house, this place where we'd lived for 9 years, where I'd thought we were building a life together, suddenly seemed contaminated. Every surface they might have touched, every room where he might have thought about her while pretending to be present with me. I made coffee with mechanical precision, hands moving through familiar motions while my brain spun through the implications. How long had this been going on? Days? Weeks? Months? How many times had Diane looked me in the eye at work, smiling and chatting about nothing, while she was sleeping with my husband? The coffee tasted like ashes, but I drank it anyway. Then, I did what any smart woman does when her world explodes. I called a lawyer. Patricia Romano had a reputation for being ruthless in divorce cases, and her office on the 14th floor downtown reflected her success. All glass and polished chrome and expensive art. I'd gotten her name from a coworker whose sister had used her last year. "Thank you for seeing me on such short notice," I said, settling into the leather chair across from her massive desk. Patricia was maybe 50, with silver-streaked dark hair cut in a precise bob and eyes that missed nothing. She'd already reviewed the photo I'd emailed over. "Tell me everything, Melissa." I did. The text message. Grant's upcoming business trip this weekend, which I now knew was anything but business. Diane's involvement. The lake house that was mine alone. Inherited property that had never been added to our marital assets because Grandma's will had specifically designated it for relatives only. "How long have you been married?" Patricia asked, making notes on a yellow legal pad. 13 years, together 15. "Children?" "No. We tried for 5 years. I had 2 miscarriages." My voice cracked slightly on that admission, remembering how Grant had held me through both losses, or seemed to. After the second one, we stopped trying. Grant said maybe it wasn't meant to be. Patricia's expression remained professionally neutral, but I caught a flicker of something in her eyes. Sympathy, maybe, or recognition of a story she'd heard too many times before. Joint assets? Our house is jointly owned. We have a joint checking account. I have my own savings from the inheritance, about 200,000. Grant has investment accounts in his name only, probably 3 times that. He's in commercial real estate development, makes close to 300,000 a year. I make 48,000 at the garden. She wrote quickly. Virginia is an equitable distribution state, not community property. The court divides assets fairly, not necessarily equally. Your inheritance stays yours. Everything else is potentially divisible. She looked up, her gaze direct. Before we go further, I need to ask, what are you planning for this weekend? I'd been expecting this question. I'm going to confront them. At the cabin. I'm not going to do anything illegal. No violence, no property destruction, no threats. I just want them to know that I know, that they didn't get away with it. Melissa, listen very carefully. Patricia leaned forward. Anything you do this weekend could impact divorce proceedings. If you assault anyone, destroy property, make threats, violate any laws, that becomes evidence his attorney can use against you. Courts don't look favorably on vengeful behavior, even when the anger is completely justified. I understand. I'm not going to hurt anyone, I promise. Do you want to try to reconcile with Grant? Did I? Some tiny part of me, the part that remembered the man I'd married at 28, the man who'd promised to love me in sickness and health, who'd held me after Mom died. That part wavered. But it was drowning under a tidal wave of rage and betrayal. No, I said firmly, this isn't something you come back from. Not with my best friend, not in my family's home. Patricia nodded. Then here's what I recommend. Document everything this weekend. Photos, recordings if Virginia law permits. It's a one-party consent state, so you can record any conversation you're part of. Get evidence. But don't engage in any behavior that could be construed as harassment, assault, or anything else that damages your position. The cabin is your property, so you have every right to be there. Just be smart. I will be. Call me Monday morning. If you still want to proceed, we'll file immediately. She stood, extending her hand. And Melissa, I'm genuinely sorry you're going through this. Nobody deserves it. I shook her hand, surprised by the sudden emotion clogging my throat. Thank you. Walking out of her office into the bright October afternoon, I felt something shift inside me. The shock was crystallizing into something harder, colder, more focused. I'd spent 13 years being Grant's understanding wife, the woman who didn't complain when he worked late, who supported his career moves, who'd put her own dreams on hold. I was done being understanding. My flight to Charleston left Thursday evening. I told Grant I was visiting my college roommate in Seattle, a trip I'd mentioned weeks ago that he'd barely acknowledged. He was distracted during our goodbye, probably thinking about Diane and their upcoming romantic weekend. Have a good time with Jessica, he said, kissing my cheek absently. You too. Good luck with your meetings. Thanks, babe. Love you. The words landed like stones between us. Love you too, I echoed, tasting the lie. Did I still love him? I'd loved him yesterday morning, before that text message. Could love evaporate that fast, or did it linger like a ghost, haunting the empty space where trust used to live? The flight was 2 hours of turbulence that matched the churning in my stomach. I rented a car at Charleston Airport and drove the 50 minutes to Lake Marion as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple that would have been beautiful if I could feel anything besides this cold, focused anger. The lake house sat at the end of a gravel road, surrounded by old-growth pine trees that whispered in the evening breeze. It was small, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a combined kitchen and living area, but it sat right on the water with a dock stretching into the lake. My grandmother had bought it in the 70s for almost nothing and spent every summer here until she died. I'd inherited not just the property but decades of memories. Fishing with Grandpa, swimming until my fingers pruned, roasting marshmallows while Grandma told ghost stories. Grant and Diane were going to defile that, had probably already defiled it if this wasn't their first trip here together. I unlocked the front door with the key I kept on my regular keychain, the one Grant had never paid attention to. Inside smelled musty from disuse. I hadn't been here since last summer. Dust covered the simple furniture, a floral sofa that had been old when I was young, a scarred wooden coffee table, a kitchen table with mismatched chairs. But it was clean otherwise, and when I tested the lights and water, everything worked. I'd stopped at a grocery store on the way and bought supplies. Wine, good wine, the expensive kind, cheese and crackers, coffee, basic necessities. I also bought candles, lots of candles, and flowers from the store's limited selection. I spent Thursday night cleaning, dusting, making the place presentable. Around midnight, I stood on the dock and looked out at the lake, moonlight reflecting off the dark water like scattered diamonds, and tried to prepare myself mentally for what was coming. My phone buzzed. A text from Grant. Made it to Charlotte safe. Hotel's nice. Miss you already. I didn't respond. Another buzz, this one from Diane. Hey girl, hope Seattle's fun. Wish I was escaping somewhere too. This stomach bug is killing me. The stomach bug, so that was her excuse for taking time off work. The lies came so easily to both of them, coordinated and rehearsed. I wondered if they'd practiced together, laughing about how gullible I was. I typed back, feel better soon, rest up. Then I turned off my phone and went inside to prepare for tomorrow. Friday morning, I woke at dawn and drove into nearby Asherton, population maybe 3,000. It had one grocery store, one diner, one hardware store, one of everything. I bought more wine, 3 bottles of an excellent Pinot Noir, and flowers from the town's only florist, an elderly woman named Dorothy who ran the shop out of a converted garage. These are gorgeous, I told her, selecting white roses, red lilies, and baby's breath. White for innocence, red for passion, for weddings and funerals. Special occasion? Dorothy asked, wrapping them in brown paper. You could say that. I'm expecting guests. Well, they're lucky to have you. Most folks don't go to this kind of trouble. These guests are very special, I said, and it was the truth. Back at the cabin, I arranged the flowers in every vase I could find, placing them throughout the main room. I set the wine bottles on ice in a large bucket. I placed candles on every available surface. The mantel, the coffee table, the kitchen counter, the windowsills, all unlit but ready. The effect was romantic, almost ritualistic. A stage set for a performance that only I knew was coming. Then I settled in to wait. Grant had said his meeting would run until Friday evening, which meant they'd probably arrive at the cabin around 7 or 8 o'clock. I had hours to kill. I spent them sitting on the dock, watching the lake, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. Diane and I had met my first month at Riverside Botanical Garden. I'd been 30, newly married, excited about my new career path. She was 33, divorced once already, funny and sharp-witted with a laugh that made everyone around her smile. We'd bonded over shared lunch breaks and a mutual appreciation for peonies. Over the years, she'd become more than a co-worker. She'd become the sister I'd never had. She'd been at my mother's funeral, crying alongside me. She'd helped me clean out this very cabin afterward, packing up Mom's belongings, telling stories to keep my spirits up. She'd been the first person I called after each miscarriage, showing up with ice cream and sad movies, and no platitudes, just presence. How long had she wanted Grant? Had it been years of slowly building desire, watching him from afar, or something sudden that ignited between them? Had she thought about me when they kissed? Did she feel guilty, or did she tell herself some story about true love, about not being able to help who you fall for? all the tired cliches people use to justify betrayal. And Grant, my husband of 13 years, the man who'd promised before God and family and everyone we knew to forsake all others. Had he ever truly loved me, or had I been convenient? Someone to come home to, someone who didn't make waves, who supported his ambitions without requiring too much attention in return. The questions circled like vultures, and I had no answers. Maybe I'd never have real answers. Cheaters always minimized, always rationalized. The truth died under layers of justification and self-deception. My phone buzzed around 3 o'clock. I turned it back on to track their movements. Grant, heading out soon, long day, probably going to grab dinner and crash early at the hotel. Sure he was. At 6:30, I heard a car on the gravel road. My heart started pounding, adrenaline flooding my system with that fight-or-flight chemical rush. This was it. No turning back now, but it was just a local resident driving past, headed to one of the other cabins further down the shore. False alarm. I forced myself to breathe slowly, deeply, maintaining control. Stay calm. Stay focused. The real arrival came at 7:42. I heard the car before I saw it, Grant's Mercedes crunching over gravel, parking beside my rental car. I watched from the window as 2 doors opened simultaneously. Grant stepped out first, stretching after the drive, looking relaxed in jeans and a casual button-down. Then Diane emerged from the passenger side, and something inside me twisted painfully. She looked beautiful. That was the worst part. Auburn hair falling in waves past her shoulders, wearing a sundress that showed off her figure, laughing at something Grant said. They looked like a couple in a romantic movie, arriving at their weekend getaway, completely unaware of what awaited them inside. I lit the candles as they approached the porch, dozens of small flames creating a warm, inviting glow. The sun had nearly set, and through the windows, the cabin must have looked magical, welcoming, perfect for romance. I heard Grant's key in the lock. Of course he had a key. I'd given him one years ago, and the door swung open. "Welcome," I called from my position beside the fireplace, wine glass in hand, voice bright and cheerful. "I have wine, chairs, and a surprise for both of you." They froze in the doorway like someone had hit pause on a movie. Diane went pale, her hand flying to her mouth. Grant's expression cycled through confusion, shock, disbelief, and something close to horror in the space of maybe 3 seconds. "Melissa," he said, and his voice cracked on my name like breaking glass. "What are you doing here?" "What am I doing here?" I laughed, and it sounded strange even to my own ears, high and cold and not quite sane. "This is my house, Grant, my grandmother's house. The real question is, what are you doing here? With my best friend, on what was supposed to be a business trip?" Diane made a small sound, almost a whimper, like an animal caught in a trap. She looked at Grant, then at me, then back at Grant, as if he might have some explanation that would make this situation okay. But there wasn't one, and we all knew it. "I can explain," Grant started, which was such a pathetic cliché that I actually did laugh then, a real laugh that bordered on hysteria. "Can you?" I set my wine glass down carefully on the mantel, afraid I might throw it otherwise. "Please do. I'm genuinely curious how you explain texting my best friend about pink lace lingerie, or lying about a business trip, or bringing her to my family's cabin. Please, Grant, enlighten me." Diane found her voice small and shaking. "Melissa, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant—" "You never meant for me to find out," I interrupted, my voice sharp as broken glass. "That's what you never meant. But you absolutely meant to sleep with my husband. You meant to lie to my face every single day at work. You meant to come here, to this place that means everything to me, and—" My voice broke despite my best efforts to keep it steady. "You were my best friend, Diane. My best friend." The silence that followed was suffocating. Grant had moved slightly in front of Diane, a protective gesture that told me everything I needed to know about where his loyalties lay now. Not with his wife of 13 years, with the woman he'd been cheating with. "How long?" I asked quietly. They exchanged another glance, a wordless communication that spoke of intimacy and shared secrets. Grant's jaw tightened. "Melissa, how long?" I repeated, louder this time, my control starting to slip. 7 months, Diane whispered. "It's been 7 months. 7 months, more than half a year." While I'd been arranging flowers beside her every single day, laughing at her jokes, confiding my problems, buying her birthday presents, she'd been sleeping with my husband. 7 months of lies, of fake smiles, of betrayal so complete it made my previous understanding of the word seem childish. "How did it start?" I heard myself ask, though I wasn't entirely sure I wanted to know. Grant ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture I'd seen 1,000 times. "The Garden Spring fundraiser. I came to support you, and Diane and I ended up talking at the bar. We just connected, really connected, and it felt easy," I suggested bitterly. "Natural? Like you'd known each other forever. Let me guess the rest. You felt understood, in a way you hadn't felt in years. She got you in a way I never could. It was like coming home. Am I close?" His silence was confirmation enough. "Do you love her?" The question came out calmer than I felt, almost clinical. Grant struggled with it visibly. I watched him wrestle with whether to lie or be honest, saw the moment he decided honesty was the only option left. "Yes," he said simply. "I do." The admission should have hurt more than it did. Maybe I'd already accepted it on some level. Maybe you can't shatter something that's already broken into pieces. "And you?" I turned to Diane. "Do you love him?" She was crying now, mascara running in black tracks down her face. "Yes, I know that doesn't make any of this okay. I know I've destroyed our friendship. I know I've hurt you in the worst possible way. But I do love him." "Well then, I guess that makes everything all right," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm so thick it was almost visible. "True love conquers all, right? Even betrayal, even lies, even destroying someone who trusted you both completely." "Melissa, please." Grant stepped forward, hands raised in a placating gesture. "I never wanted to hurt you. You have to believe that. I don't have to believe anything anymore." I moved to the kitchen table where I'd laid out printed copies of bank statements, credit card records, phone logs that Patricia's private investigator had pulled together in the past 24 hours with remarkable efficiency. "I've been looking at our finances, Grant. Very interesting patterns. Dinner at Romano's on April 12th. I was at a workshop that night. Hotel room at the Riverside Inn on May 7th. You told me you were in Atlanta. Wine purchases, jewelry purchases, spa packages, all on dates when you were supposedly working late or traveling for business." I spread the papers across the table like a poker player, revealing a winning hand. "You've spent approximately $15,000 on this affair in 7 months. $15,000 of our joint money. Money I helped earn. Money I thought was going toward our future together. Our shared life. What a joke." Grant's face had gone from pale to flushed red. "You had me investigated. I had financial records pulled that I have every legal right to access," I corrected coolly. "We have a joint checking account, remember? One of the perks of marriage. And here's the beautiful part. Virginia recognizes something called marital waste. That's what they call it when you spend marital funds on an extramarital affair. It can be considered when dividing assets in a divorce. So that $15,000, that's going to come directly out of your share of our settlement." "Divorce?" Diane's voice was barely audible. "Of course divorce," I snapped, turning on her. "What did you think would happen? That we'd all live together in some bizarre arrangement? That I'd just accept this and move on? Or wait, you probably didn't think about me at all, did you? You were too busy planning romantic weekends and picking out lingerie to consider the woman whose life you were destroying." "I thought about you constantly," Diane said, her voice breaking completely. "Every single time I saw you at work, every time we had lunch together, Every time you smiled at me like everything was normal, it killed me inside. But I couldn't stop. I tried. God, I really tried to end it, but I couldn't. You tried, I repeated flatly, letting the word hang in the air. You tried so hard that you kept sleeping with him for 7 months. You tried so hard that you planned this weekend trip, knowing what it would do to me if I ever found out. Tell me, Diane, were you going to send me a postcard? Wish you were here. Sorry I'm destroying your marriage. She flinched as if I'd slapped her. Melissa, that's enough, Grant said, and the authoritative tone in his voice, the one he used in business meetings, the one he'd sometimes used with me when he wanted me to back down or be reasonable, snapped something fundamental inside me. Enough? I laughed again, that high, cold sound. I haven't even started. You don't get to tell me what's enough anymore, Grant. You gave up that right when you decided to stick your tongue down my best friend's throat. So no, this isn't enough. Not nearly enough. I picked up one of the wine bottles I'd set out, my hand steady now despite the rage coursing through me. I bought this for tonight. Good wine. Expensive. I was going to let you open it, let you pour glasses for both of you, and then I was going to propose a toast. To true love, to honesty, to whatever pretty lies you've been telling yourselves to make this okay in your heads. I set the bottle down hard enough that they both jumped. But you know what? I don't want to drink with you. I don't want to pretend this is civilized. So here's what's going to happen instead. You're both going to leave. Right now, you're going to get in that car and drive away from my property. And Monday morning, Grant, you're going to find divorce papers waiting for you at the house. Heather, you're going to find yourself looking for a new job, because I cannot and will not work with you anymore. I can't even look at you anymore without wanting to. I stopped myself, remembering Patricia's warnings about threats. Melissa, can we please just talk about this rationally? Grant's voice had shifted to pleading now, the angry defensiveness gone. I know I messed up. I know I've hurt you terribly. But we've been together for 15 years. That has to count for something. That history, everything we've built. It did count for something, I said quietly, and somehow the quiet was more devastating than the shouting. It counted for everything. It was my whole adult life, Grant, but you threw it away. You made that choice. Not me, you. People make mistakes, he tried, grasping at straws now. Marriages survive affairs all the time. We could go to counseling, work through this, rebuild the trust. I don't want to work through this. The words burst out of me louder than I'd intended, echoing in the small space. I don't want to spend months or years in some therapist's office, dissecting where we went wrong, trying to rebuild trust that you destroyed. I don't want to wonder every single time you're late from work if you're with her. I don't want to lie awake at night picturing you together, touching her, saying the same things to her that you said to me. I don't want any of it. My voice had risen to a shout. I was shaking now, adrenaline and anger and grief all crashing through me at once, like competing tidal waves. You killed us, Grant. You killed what we had, and you did it willingly, knowingly, with full awareness of what you were destroying. So don't stand there and tell me we can work through it like you forgot to take out the trash or left the toilet seat up. You didn't forget anything. You chose this. Every single time you were with her, you chose this. Diane had sunk into one of the kitchen chairs, her face buried in her hands, shoulders shaking with sobs that I felt nothing about. Grant stood frozen, staring at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Maybe he was. Maybe the understanding, accommodating wife he'd married had never actually existed, and I'd just been playing a role for 13 years until the script finally ran out. I need you both to leave, I said, my voice steadier now, cold and final. I'm going for a walk. When I come back in 30 minutes, I want you gone. If you're not gone, I'm calling the sheriff. This is my property and you're trespassing. Melissa, Grant started. 30 minutes, I repeated, starting now. I grabbed my jacket from the hook by the door and walked out into the night, not looking back. My legs carried me down to the dock automatically, muscle memory from childhood summers. I sat at the very end with my feet hanging over the water and let myself cry. Really cry. Not the controlled tears I'd been holding back all evening. The kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep in your chest, that hurts your ribs and makes your throat raw. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Patricia. "How's it going? Remember, document, don't escalate." Right, documentation. My phone had been recording in my jacket pocket since the moment they'd walked in the door. Virginia's one-party consent law meant I could record any conversation I was part of, and this recording would serve as evidence that Grant had admitted to the affair, admitted he loved Diane, admitted everything we'd need for the divorce proceedings. I texted back with shaking fingers. "Going as planned. Got everything on recording. We'll call Monday." How long I sat there, I don't know. Long enough for my tears to dry. Long enough for my breathing to steady. Long enough to realize that despite everything, the betrayal, the anger, the grief that felt like it might actually kill me, I was going to survive this. Maybe not today, maybe not for a long time, but eventually. When I walked back to the cabin, Grant's Mercedes was gone. The interior was dark, all my carefully lit candles blown out. They'd taken the hint and left. On the kitchen table, I found a note in Grant's handwriting, his distinctive architect's print. "Melissa, I'm sorry doesn't begin to cover it. I know I've destroyed us, destroyed your trust, destroyed everything good we had. I know there's nothing I can say that will make this better or take away your pain. You deserve so much more than what I gave you, so much better than how I treated you. I'll call you tomorrow so we can talk about next steps, about the house and the finances and everything else. Whatever you need from me, I'll do it. I'm so, so sorry." I crumpled the note and threw it in the trash can. Then I poured myself a glass of the expensive wine I'd bought and sat on the porch in the darkness, looking out at the lake that had belonged to my grandmother and my mother, and now to me alone. This place they'd tried to contaminate with their affair, but which was still mine, would always be mine. My phone rang around midnight, Grant's name on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. He called again 10 minutes later. Again, I didn't answer. The third time, I simply turned off the phone completely and sat in the silence, listening to the lake water lap against the dock pilings and the night insects singing their eternal songs. I spent the night in my grandmother's cabin, in the bedroom where I'd slept as a child during summer vacations, and I didn't dream. Or if I did, I don't remember them. Maybe that was mercy. Saturday morning arrived with weak autumn sunlight filtering through the pine trees. I woke disoriented for a moment, forgetting where I was and why. Then memory crashed back like a physical blow, and I had to sit on the edge of the bed for several minutes, just breathing, before I could stand up. My phone, when I turned it on, showed 23 missed calls from Grant, 11 from Diane, and what looked like at least 30 text messages I had no intention of reading. I deleted them all without looking. Every single one. Then I called Patricia. "I have the recording," I told her without preamble. Grant admitted everything. The affair, that he loves her, the whole thing. It's all documented. "Perfect," Patricia said. "All business, even on a Saturday morning." "That's exactly what we need. Come see me Monday morning, 9 sharp. We'll file that day." "What should I tell Grant? He keeps calling." "Nothing. Don't engage at all. You've said everything you needed to say. Any communication from this point forward goes through lawyers. That's it. He's going to try to ambush me when I get home tomorrow." "Then don't go home tomorrow. Stay somewhere else until we file and he's been served with papers. A friend's house, a hotel, anywhere he can't just show up. Once the papers are served, there will be legal protocols in place for communication and property access." I thought about it. I could actually go to Seattle, visit Jessica for real, make the lie true. Good plan. Text Grant that you need space, and you'll be in touch through your attorney. Keep it brief and completely unemotional, then stop responding to anything. After we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table and composed a text to Grant, revising it multiple times until it said exactly what I needed it to say and nothing more. I need space to process this. Do not contact me again. Any future communication will go through my attorney. I'll arrange to get my belongings from the house when you're not there. I sent it before I could second-guess myself. His response came within literally 10 seconds. Melissa, please. We need to talk about this face-to-face. I can't just let you walk away like this. Please call me. Please. I didn't respond. A minute later, another text. I love you. I know I have a terrible way of showing it right now, but I do love you. I never stopped loving you. Please give me a chance to explain everything properly. Delete. Then one from Diane. Melissa, I know you don't want to hear from me, and I understand why, but please understand, I never wanted any of this to happen. I never planned for it. It just did. These things just happen sometimes. I'm so sorry for the pain I've caused you. You have to know that. Delete. Block number. I spent Saturday cleaning the cabin thoroughly, washing sheets, scrubbing surfaces, opening windows to air everything out, symbolically erasing any trace of their presence. It felt important somehow, this act of purification, of reclaiming the space they'd tried to corrupt. Around noon, I drove into Asherton and had lunch at the diner. Meatloaf and mashed potatoes that tasted like absolutely nothing, but I forced myself to eat anyway because I needed the fuel. The waitress, a friendly woman in her 60s, whose name tag said Ruby, made small talk while refilling my coffee. You here visiting family? Sort of. Family place on the lake. Nice to get away from the world sometimes, isn't it? Escape from whatever's bothering you. Yeah, I said, and found I meant it. It really is. That afternoon, I booked a flight from Charleston to Seattle for Sunday morning. Jessica, my actual college roommate, was surprised but immediately welcoming when I called and asked if I could stay for a few days. Of course you can, she said without hesitation. Is everything okay? Not really. Not at all, actually. I'll explain when I get there. Do I need to prepare bail money or help you hide a body? That startled a genuine laugh out of me, the first real laugh I'd had in days. No, but I appreciate your willingness. Sunday morning, I locked up the cabin and drove back to Charleston, watching the lake house disappear in my rearview mirror. Before my flight, I stopped at a storage facility and rented a unit. I'd need somewhere to put my belongings when I moved them out of the house I'd shared with Grant, and I wasn't ready to look for a new apartment yet, one thing at a time. The flight to Seattle was quiet, filled with business travelers and families. I watched clouds through the window and thought about what came next. The divorce would take months, Patricia had warned. Virginia required a 1-year separation period unless you could prove adultery, but with my recording, we had ironclad proof. We could file on fault grounds, which meant a faster process and potentially a more favorable settlement. Marital waste, adultery, equitable distribution, legal terms for my life falling apart. Jessica picked me up at SeaTac Airport, took one look at my face, and pulled me into a hug without asking a single question. She was 2 years older than me, a marine biologist who'd never married, and always seemed perfectly content with that choice. Now I wondered if she'd been smarter than all of us. Let's get you home, she said. I have wine, chocolate, and absolutely no judgment about anything. Her apartment overlooked Elliott Bay, all windows and light and the kind of modern minimalism that spoke of someone who had her life together. She set me up in her spare bedroom, brought me tea, and sat on the edge of the bed while I told her everything from start to finish. Jesus, she said when I'd finished, your best friend. That's some next-level betrayal right there. I know. What are you going to do about work? You can't keep working with her day after day. I'm going to talk to Gordon on Monday. He's the garden manager. I'll explain the situation and see if we can work out different schedules, or maybe she can transfer to a different location. If not, I shrugged. I'll find another job. The thought of seeing her face every single day makes me physically ill. You could always move here. Jessica suggested carefully. Seattle has botanical gardens. You could start completely fresh, leave all the memories and the shared spaces behind. The idea was tempting in a way I hadn't expected. Leave Virginia entirely, leave all the memories and the life I'd built with Grant, start over somewhere new where nobody knew my story. Maybe, I said, let me get through the divorce first, then I'll think about the future. That night, lying in Jessica's comfortable guest bed, I finally let myself think about what I'd actually lost. Not just Grant, though that was huge and complicated and painful, but Diane too, my best friend of 7 years, the person I'd trusted more than almost anyone except my husband. That betrayal somehow cut deeper than Grant's, or maybe it just cut differently, in places I hadn't known could hurt. You expected your spouse to remain faithful. That was literally in the wedding vows. But your best friend? That was supposed to be sacred in a different way, a chosen bond that wasn't supposed to break. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Against every bit of my better judgment, I looked. Another text from Diane, from yet another phone number. Please let me explain everything. Can we meet for coffee, just to talk? I need you to understand what happened, why it happened. Please, Melissa. This time, I responded, breaking my own rule, but unable to help myself. There's nothing to explain, Diane. You made your choices. Every single day for 7 months you made those choices. Now I'm making mine. Don't contact me again. I blocked that number too. Then I blocked Grant's number completely. Then I turned off my phone and tried to sleep, and eventually, exhausted, I did. Monday morning, I was at Patricia's office at 8:45, caffeinated and ready, despite having slept maybe 4 hours total. She had the divorce papers ready to go, printed and organized in a neat folder that represented the end of my marriage. We went through them line by line. Petition for divorce on grounds of adultery, request for equitable distribution of all marital property, request for Grant to pay my legal fees, given his significantly higher income, and the fault grounds for divorce. He'll probably contest some of this, Patricia warned. Most people do initially, but with your evidence, that recording, the financial records showing marital waste, the testimony you can provide, we're in an extremely strong position. How long will this take? With fault grounds and solid evidence, if he cooperates and doesn't fight too hard, maybe 5 to 6 months. If he decides to fight every detail, could be up to a year. The 1-year separation requirement is waived in adultery cases, but the court still needs time to process everything, schedule hearings if necessary, finalize the asset division. 6 months to a year. Half a year to a full year of my life spent dissolving a marriage that had taken 13 years to build and 1 text message to destroy. What about the house, I asked. Jointly owned, purchased during the marriage with marital funds. You're entitled to half the equity at minimum. We can request that it be sold and the proceeds divided, or one of you can buy out the other's share at fair market value. I don't want it, I said immediately and with certainty. I don't want to live there anymore, and I don't want him to have it either. Sell it. Understood. What about retirement accounts? He has a substantial 401k through his company, and we both have IRAs in our own names. Those get divided too. Virginia follows equitable distribution principles, which means fair but not necessarily equal. Given the adultery and the marital waste, we can make a strong argument that you deserve more than 50% of the marital assets. We spent another hour going through every detail: bank accounts, credit cards, my car that was in my name, his car in his name, furniture, personal property, all the accumulated detritus of a 13-year marriage that now had to be catalogued and divided like we were liquidating a business. Finally, Patricia sat back in her leather chair. This is comprehensive and strong. I'll file today. Grant will be served within 48 hours, probably at his office. Once he's been served, he has 21 days to file a response. Then we enter the discovery phase, where both sides exchange information and evidence. After that, we can attempt mediation to settle things, or if that fails, we go to court and let a judge decide. What are the actual chances he'll try to fight the adultery claim? With your recording where he explicitly admits to the affair and says he loves her, minimal to zero, his attorney will almost certainly advise him to settle, rather than let this go to court, where that recording could become public record. Affairs are one thing. Having them documented and admitted to in your own voice is another thing entirely. I signed the papers with a hand that barely shook anymore. 13 years, reduced to legal documents and property divisions and signatures on dotted lines. One more thing, Patricia said as I stood to leave. Brace yourself for what I call the guilt trip phase. Grant is going to try hard to make you feel bad for divorcing him. He'll say he made a mistake. He'll say he still loves you. He'll promise to change and be better. Don't fall for it. People who cheat don't change just because they got caught. They only change if they genuinely understand what they did wrong and do the hard, uncomfortable work of becoming different people. Most cheaters never do that work. I won't fall for it, I promised. Good, stay strong. You're doing the right thing. From her office, I called Gordon at Riverside Botanical Garden. He answered on the second ring, his gentle voice instantly recognizable. Melissa, how was Seattle? Feeling better? Gordon, I need to talk to you about something personal. Can we meet today? Of course. How about lunch? That cafe on Riverside Drive. We met at noon. I ordered a salad I had no intention of eating and told him an abbreviated version of events. Diane and Grant were having a 7-month affair. I'd discovered it. I couldn't work with Diane anymore. Gordon listened with increasing discomfort, clearly wishing he was absolutely anywhere else having any other conversation. I'm so sorry, Melissa. That's terrible. I don't even know what to say. I'm asking if we can arrange different schedules for Diane and me. Or maybe she can work in a different section of the garden. I just can't see her every day. I can't function if I have to interact with her constantly. Gordon rubbed his forehead, looking pained. Melissa, you're one of our absolute best employees. You're reliable, incredibly talented, and customers specifically request you for their arrangements. Diane is also skilled at her job, but between you and me, she's been distracted and unfocused lately, making mistakes, calling in sick frequently. If it came down to choosing between you two, he trailed off meaningfully. I don't want her fired because of me, I said, surprising myself with the words. I just want space, distance. Let me see what I can arrange. I'll talk to her, get her side of things, and work something out. You're scheduled for Tuesday through Saturday this month, correct? Yes. I'll put her on Monday through Friday, completely different hours. That should minimize any overlap. And I'll move her to the greenhouse propagation section while you stay in the main arrangements area. Does that work? That works perfectly. Thank you, Gordon. For what it's worth, I'm truly sorry you're going through this. You don't deserve any of it. There it was again. You don't deserve it. As if life operated on some cosmic system of fairness, where bad things only happened to people who had earned them somehow. I spent the next week at Jessica's apartment, mostly sleeping or staring blankly at her TV without absorbing anything. She was kind enough not to hover, giving me space while also making sure I ate at least one real meal per day. On Wednesday, Patricia called with an update. He's been served, she said, at his office by a process server. His attorney, Bradley Thompson, has already reached out to me. Thompson's a decent lawyer, not a shark, but not incompetent either. He wants to discuss potential settlement terms before filing a response. Already? It's only been 2 days. Grant doesn't want this going to court, Melissa. That recording you have makes a trial a guaranteed loss for him. Thompson is smart enough to recognize that immediately. They want to settle quietly and quickly. What kind of settlement are they proposing? They're offering a 60-40 split on all marital assets, with Grant taking the 60% share. He'll buy you out of the house at current market value, which according to recent comparables is probably around 600,000, so your share would be 300,000. He'll pay your legal fees up to a cap of $15,000. And he wants the recording permanently destroyed as part of the settlement agreement. I laughed, a harsh sound with no humor in it. 60-40, he gets the larger share after he cheated for 7 months. That's their opening position. It's actually not uncommon. They're trying to anchor the negotiation. Here's what we counter with. 70-30 split of all marital assets in your favor. You keep all of your separate inheritance money completely untouched, and the recording is yours to keep, but you agree not to make it public or share it except with legal counsel. We also add a specific clause requiring him to return that $15,000 he spent on the affair directly from his share, essentially making him pay it back. What about spousal support? Given the length of your marriage and the significant income disparity, you could absolutely request it. Virginia courts often award spousal support in situations like yours. But pursuing it would extend the process considerably, and it means ongoing financial connection to Grant potentially for years. I thought about that. The idea of receiving monthly checks from Grant, of having any kind of ongoing financial tie to him, felt wrong on a visceral level. Like staying connected to someone I wanted completely severed from my life. Clean break, I decided. I don't want anything from him going forward, except what I'm owed from the asset division. All right, I'll send the counteroffer today. These things usually take several rounds of back and forth, so prepare for that. Thursday, I flew back to Virginia. Not to the house, I couldn't think of it as home anymore, but to a hotel near the airport that offered extended stay rates. Patricia had arranged for a moving company to come pack up my belongings on Saturday. When Grant would be out of the house, on a schedule we'd coordinated through lawyers, like we were organizing a hostage exchange. Friday, I went back to work for the first time since discovering the affair. Gordon's scheduling changes meant I wouldn't see Diane, but the prospect of being in the same building where we'd spent so many hours together, where she'd smiled at me and hugged me and lied to me every single day for 7 months, made my hand shake as I pulled into the parking lot. Kelly, one of the other florists, was at the front desk when I arrived. She took one look at my face and came around to pull me into a hug without saying a word. Gordon told us, she said quietly when she released me. Not the details, just that you and Diane had a serious falling out and wouldn't be working together anymore. I'm so sorry, Melissa. Whatever happened, I'm just sorry. Thank you. Well, we're really glad you're back. The arrangement section has been an absolute disaster without you. Nobody can do cascading bouquets like you do. Work, I discovered, was actually a blessing. For 8 solid hours, I could focus entirely on flowers instead of my demolished life. I created a wedding arrangement with white roses and blue delphinium, a funeral piece with lilies and chrysanthemums, a birthday bouquet bright with gerbera daisies and sunflowers. My hands remembered the work, even when my mind wanted to wander to dark places. Cut, strip, arrange, wire, wrap. Simple, concrete tasks with visible, beautiful results. Around noon, I went to the break room for lunch. The botanical garden staff was small, maybe 10 people total, and word had clearly spread that something significant had happened between Diane and me. People were kind but awkward, offering sympathy in vague, careful terms, nobody quite knowing what to say. Diane's pretty upset, Kelly ventured carefully over her sandwich. She's been crying a lot in the greenhouse. Looks terrible, honestly. I don't want to hear about Diane, I said more sharply than I'd intended. Kelly held up her hands defensively. Sorry, I just thought you should know, that's all. Know what? That she's sad? That she feels bad about what she did? Good. She should feel bad. An uncomfortable silence fell over the break room. Kelly wisely changed the subject to a new orchid shipment arriving next week, and I was grateful to let the conversation move on. The rest of my shift passed without incident. I left at 5, drove back to my hotel, and ordered room service that I barely touched. My phone rang once, a Virginia number I didn't recognize, and I let it go to voicemail. When I checked later, it was Diane calling from yet another phone, her voice thick with crying. "Melissa, please, I know you don't want to talk to me, but I need you to understand something. I never meant for any of this to happen. I fought against it for so long before anything physical even happened. I know that doesn't make it okay, but please, you have to believe I never wanted to hurt you. You were my best friend. You still are, in my heart. You always will be. Please call me back, please, Melissa." I deleted the message without listening to the whole thing and blocked that number too. Saturday morning, I met the movers at the house at 9 o'clock sharp. Grant's Mercedes was gone, as we'd arranged through our attorneys, but standing in that driveway felt surreal and painful. This house where I'd lived for 9 years, where I'd thought I was building a permanent life, now felt like enemy territory. The movers were efficient and professional, following my detailed list without questions or commentary. They packed up my clothes, my books, my personal items and mementos, the antique dresser that had been my mother's, photo albums from before Grant entered my life, a few kitchen items I'd owned before the marriage, everything that was indisputably mine. It all fit into one moving truck, which felt like a depressing commentary on how little I'd brought into the marriage that remained purely mine after 13 years. I walked through the empty rooms one final time, saying a silent goodbye to the life I'd thought I was living. The bedroom where I'd cried after each miscarriage. The kitchen where Grant and I had cooked together on good nights, talking about our days. The living room where we'd watched movies and made plans for a future that would never happen now. All of it contaminated by what I knew, poisoned by betrayal I could never unsee or unknow. On the kitchen counter, I left my wedding ring. I'd taken it off that night at the cabin and hadn't put it back on since. Leaving it there felt symbolic, final, like the last cord being cut. The movers transported everything to the storage unit I'd rented. I'd figure out the next steps later, finding an apartment, building a new life from these scattered pieces, but today was just about extracting myself from the shared space. One step at a time. Patricia called as I was leaving the storage facility, my car now holding only what I'd need for the hotel. Good news, Grant's attorney called back. They're accepting our counteroffer with only minor modifications. 70-30 split in your favor. You keep your inheritance completely untouched. He pays your legal fees in full with no cap, and he returns the $15,000 in marital waste funds. They're requesting only that you agree not to make the recording public or share it with anyone except legal counsel. What about the recording itself? Do I have to destroy it? No, you keep it. You just agree not to disseminate it publicly. Are these terms acceptable to you? I thought about it. 70% of our joint assets, which after the house sale and account divisions, would be approximately $250,000. Combined with my inheritance savings of $200,000, I'd have close to $450,000 total, enough to start over comfortably, to build whatever life I wanted next. Yes, I said, those terms are acceptable. Excellent. I'll draw up the formal settlement agreement. We should have everything finalized and signed within 2 weeks, and then it's just a matter of waiting for the court to process the final divorce decree. That typically takes another 2 to 3 months, but the hard part is essentially over. The hard part is over, if only that were actually true. The legal part was ending, sure, but the emotional part would take much, much longer. Healing doesn't follow a court schedule or respect a timeline. 2 weeks later, I signed the settlement agreement in Patricia's office, my signature making official the end of my marriage. Grant signed separately, through his attorney, and we never had to see each other face to face. The property division was finalized. I received 70% of our joint assets, totaling about $260,000 after the house sale went through and accounts were divided. With my inheritance, I had financial security for the first time in my life as a truly independent person. The final divorce decree would take another few months to process through the court system, but I was legally separated, financially independent, and completely alone in a way I'd never been before. I threw myself into work at the garden with almost manic intensity. Gordon had been true to his word about the scheduling, and I rarely saw Diane. On the handful of occasions our paths did cross in hallways or parking lots, she looked thin and worn, dark circles under her eyes, her usual vibrant energy dimmed to almost nothing. Part of me, the vindictive, angry part, felt satisfaction at seeing her suffer. A smaller, more honest part felt something uncomfortably close to sadness. Kelly mentioned once carefully that Diane had been asking about me, wanting to know if I was okay, if I was managing, if there was any chance we might talk. I told Kelly, just as carefully, to tell Diane absolutely nothing. My life was no longer any of Diane's business, and it never would be again. 3 weeks after signing the settlement, I found an apartment. Nothing fancy or dramatic, just a simple one-bedroom in a quiet complex near the botanical garden, but it was entirely mine. No shared history, no contaminated memories, no ghosts of a failed marriage haunting the corners. I bought all new furniture, nothing from the house Grant and I had shared. New dishes, new silverware, new towels, new sheets. I wanted absolutely nothing from my old life in this new space. Rachel flew out to help me move in properly, spending a long weekend painting the living room, a soft sage green, and hanging curtains, and helping me arrange furniture. We drank wine and ordered pizza, and she made me laugh for the first time in what felt like months, telling outrageous stories about her latest disastrous date with a marine biologist who kept comparing her to different species of fish. Maybe being single isn't actually that bad, she said, sprawled on my new couch in paint-stained clothes. At least I only have to deal with my own ridiculous problems. There's definitely freedom in it, I agreed. Scary freedom, but still freedom. You're going to be okay, Rachel said, suddenly serious. You know that, right? I know everything feels impossible and broken right now, but you're going to come through this. You're going to be okay, Melissa. How can you possibly know that? Because you're strong. You've always been strong. You just forgot for a while, got lost in being who Grant needed you to be. Now you get to figure out who you actually are underneath all those expectations. Had I forgotten who I was? Or had I never really known in the first place? I'd spent so many years being what Grant needed, what my job required, what friends expected, that I'd completely lost track of who Melissa actually was when nobody was watching, what she wanted, what she needed, what made her happy independent of anyone else's approval or validation. I guess I was about to find out. October brought the Botanical Gardens' annual Autumn Festival, our biggest event of the year. All hands on deck, including Diane. I saw her during setup on Friday, across the main exhibition space, hanging decorative gourds and dried cornstalks. Our eyes met accidentally across the crowded room, and I watched her face crumble, tears immediately filling her eyes. She turned away quickly, but not before I saw the pain there, raw and obvious. You okay? Kelly asked quietly, noticing the exchange. I'm fine, I lied. The festival itself was successful and busy enough that I could lose myself completely in work. I sold arrangements, answered visitor questions about plant care, smiled at customers until my face hurt, and pretended my life was normal and intact instead of shattered into pieces I was still trying to reassemble. Sunday evening, as we were all breaking down tables and cleaning up after closing, Gordon found me in the arrangement room where I was putting away supplies. Got a minute? He asked. Sure. We sat in the break room, and he poured us both coffee from the machine that had been there since before I was hired, probably since before I was born. Diane turned in her resignation, Gordon said without preamble or softening. 2 weeks' notice. She's moving to North Carolina, accepted a position at some botanical garden in Asheville. I absorbed this information, surprised by the complicated wave of feelings that washed over me. Relief, yes, but also sadness, and something else I couldn't quite name. "How is she doing?" I asked before I could stop myself. "Honestly, not well at all. She's been a complete mess ever since all this happened. I still don't know the full story, and I don't need to, but whatever went down between you two has absolutely destroyed her." "It destroyed me too," I said quietly. "I know it did. That's why I wanted to tell you she's leaving, even though she specifically asked me not to. I thought you should know, in case you wanted to, I don't know, say something. Or not say something. Your choice entirely." After Gordon left, I sat alone in the break room for a long time, holding my coffee and staring at nothing, thinking about 7 years of friendship that had been real before it became fake. All those lunches and laughs and shared confidences. Had any of it been genuine, or had it all been contaminated from the start? Tuesday arrived, Diane's last day at the garden, and I found myself waiting until evening when everyone else had left. I wasn't entirely sure why. Maybe just to see her one last time. Maybe for some kind of closure that probably didn't actually exist. She was in the greenhouse, watering plants one final time, and she didn't hear me approach until I said her name. "Diane." She spun around fast, nearly dropping the watering can, eyes wide with shock. "Melissa, I thought you'd left already." "Gordon told me you're moving to Asheville." "Yeah, starting fresh. Clean slate." She set down the watering can with trembling hands. "I'll be gone by this weekend." We stood there in the humid greenhouse air, surrounded by plants we'd both tended over the years, and the silence stretched between us like an unbridgeable canyon. "I don't forgive you," I said finally, the words coming out steadier than I'd expected. "I need you to know that clearly. I can't forgive what you did to me." Diane's face crumpled completely, but she nodded, tears already streaming. "I understand. I wouldn't forgive me either. But I also can't carry around this anger and hatred forever. It's exhausting, and it's not good for me. So I'm not forgiving you, but I'm trying to let go of actively hating you, for my own sake, not yours." "I never wanted your hate," she whispered. "I never wanted any of this." "Then you shouldn't have done it." The words came out harsher than I'd intended. "You shouldn't have touched him, Diane. You shouldn't have lied to my face every single day for 7 months. You shouldn't have planned romantic weekends at my family's cabin. You made choices. Own them." "I do own them." Her voice rose, defensive and raw. "I live with them every single day. Do you think I'm not completely aware of what I destroyed? Do you think I don't hate myself? Your self-hatred isn't my problem or my responsibility. I know that." Tears were streaming freely down her face now. "I know sorry means absolutely nothing at this point. But I am sorry, Melissa. I'm so sorry that I can't sleep at night. I see your face every time I close my eyes. I lost the best friend I ever had because I was selfish and stupid and weak, and I have to live with that forever." "You were all of those things," I agreed coldly. "But you were also deliberate. This wasn't some mistake or accident. Mistakes are things that happen in moments of thoughtlessness. This was 7 months of active choices, each one made with full knowledge of what you were doing and who you were hurting." She sank onto a nearby bench, face buried in her hands, sobbing openly now. "I know. God, I know." I could have walked away then. I'd said what I needed to say, but something made me stay, some need for complete closure that wasn't quite satisfied yet. "Did you actually love him?" I asked. "Really, truly love him? Or was it just the excitement of the affair, the forbidden nature of it?" Diane looked up, eyes red and swollen, mascara in dark streaks down her face. "I thought I did. I convinced myself I did. But looking back now, with some distance and clarity, I think I loved the attention more than I loved him. The way he looked at me like I was special and fascinating. The feeling of being wanted and desired. I'd been divorced and single for so long, and here was the successful, attractive man telling me I was different from anyone he'd ever known. It was intoxicating, addictive. What about now? Are you two still together? Now? She laughed, but it was bitter and broken. Now he texts me occasionally, maybe once a week, asking how I'm doing. But he's not leaving you for me. Oh wait, you already left him. But he's not with me either. He's just alone, I guess. Turns out when an affair becomes real life, when it's not secret and forbidden anymore, it loses all its appeal pretty fast. I absorbed this, processing it. So you broke up? About a month ago. He said he needed time and space to figure out what he actually wanted. Translation, he got what he wanted from both of us and realized it wasn't actually what he wanted at all. So, now I'm alone. I've quit my job. I'm moving to a city where I don't know a single person, and I destroyed the most important friendship I've ever had in my entire life. I'd say I got exactly what I deserved, except it hurt so much more than I ever imagined it possibly could. There was a vindictive satisfaction in hearing this, but it felt hollow and empty. Their relationship falling apart didn't undo what they'd done to me. It didn't heal my wounds or erase my pain. It just meant we'd all lost everything for absolutely nothing. I hope Asheville is good to you, I said finally. I genuinely hope you figure out who you are without needing someone else to make you feel valuable or special. And I really, truly hope you never do anything like this to anyone ever again. I won't, she said fiercely, looking up at me with something desperate in her eyes. I swear to you, Melissa, I will never, ever do anything like this to anyone again. I've learned this lesson in the hardest possible way. Good. I turned to walk away, then paused at the greenhouse door and looked back one last time. Diane, we were good friends once, for years. I want you to know I'm not erasing that or pretending it didn't matter. Those 7 years did matter. They were real and important. But this matters more. What you did, what you chose, that matters more than all the good that came before it. I know, she whispered, so quietly I almost didn't hear it. I walked out of the greenhouse and didn't look back again. That chapter was closed now. Finally, completely closed. And somehow, impossibly, I felt lighter than I had in months.